Recording from the NōmGeo Mobile Command Center, also known as the RV. You're listening to the NōmGeo Podcast, hosted by Brandon Versaw and sometimes Chris Villiam.
Hi, everyone. Brandon here. For this episode of the podcast, I'm just re-releasing the interview that we did with Kim and Dee from Kendall's restaurant in Noble, Oklahoma, where we did the first investigation of NōmGeo Paranormal. In the video, I had to edit it down quite a bit, so there's, probably about 10 additional minutes that were cut out. You weren't missing a whole lot from the interview in the video, but I thought it might be a cool podcast episode as well. So, so here it is. Enjoy. And as always, you can follow us on social media at Nomadic Geographic on TikTok. Unfortunately, the Instagram for Nomadic Geographic has been taken down, apparently because I shared the Patreon link in a video, which apparently is against the community guidelines of Instagram. I had no idea. Now I do, but apparently they are threatening to delete the whole account, which is a little weird. You'd think they'd just take the video down, but who am I to say? I don't run Instagram. Other than that, if you're able, I would love it if you could support the Patreon at patreon.com/NōmGeo. What else? Oh, I made a subreddit. So if anybody would like to join the subreddit and chat, it is reddit.com/r/NōmGeo, I believe. And so I think that's everything. Enjoy the interview.
Brandon, will you do me a favor and clap for me? Just one clap.
Oh, okay.
Take one.
My name is Dee Downer, and this is Kim Cline, and we're business partners. We've had the restaurant for about 35 years now. Kim's mother originally opened the restaurant when Kim's daughter Kendall was born.
38 years ago.
38 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she had it for a few years, and then we ended up buying it from her basically 35 years ago, and have had it ever since.
There's lots of stories about this place being haunted.
Yes.
Do you guys have any interesting experiences you'd like to share?
Well, we know that they like Kim more than they like me.
This is true.
We had it was a Wednesday, and Kim was down here, and she was making cinnamon rolls, and she ran down to Super C to pick something up and saw somebody that she knew and talking and everything. Then she remembered that she had cinnamon rolls going, and she was like, "Oh gosh!" So she runs back down here, comes in, and the doors are wide open, and the cinnamon rolls are fine. Somebody opened the doors.
The oven is a commercial, very heavy oven, and I had left them on, and I mean, the doors were standing open. I was the only one here with a key. And so we always make the joke that they like me and they try to help me out a lot. And I appreciate it. I need all the help I can get.
Well, about 4 hours later, I came in to open up the restaurant, and we have tea urns up there that we brew into that have little spouts on them. And the first thing you do after all these years is you make sure that none of the spouts are open. So I brewed a pot of tea, moved it over, got another pot of tea going, went off to do my stuff, came back out, both spouts were out, and the tea's just pouring on the floor. And I'm like, they helped you out, but look what they do to me. But no, we really haven't ever had anything malicious or bad or anything. It's just people have experienced things over the years. I mean, we used to have a play area back here, and kids would be playing with some imaginary friend back there. And I mean it was not like an isolated incident. It was interesting. The smaller the kids, but we'd have one sitting in a high chair here, and they'd be waving to somebody over there, and you're like, what are you?
This room was very active. We had the play area, and we had toys in there. And at night, they would go wash the toys and set them back over there to dry. And I would come in the morning, and the toys would be all over the floor, and I thought they hadn't done their work. And so one night, I think the night that I finally decided that we were going to ask somebody, is the alarms would go off all the time. And there's a man, Paul, he's a friend of ours, and he's a carpenter, and he has a key, and he comes in and helps us do things all the time. So whenever the alarm would go off, I would always call him and ask him to come over. So I'm on my way home, and I had closed up. I had turned everything off. Everything was done. I left, and by the time I got maybe 10 minutes away, the police called, and the alarm company called and said it was going off. So I called Paul, and I said, can you go over there and turn the alarm off? I'm sure it's nothing again. And he called me a few minutes later, and he said, you need to come over here right now. So I turned around and thought we were being robbed. Got down here. The police were surrounding the place. Every light in the entire building was on. The police were surrounded with guns because doors were standing open.
Okay.
And I came in here, Paul and I came in, and we go through here. The toys were all over the floor, and I hadn't been gone 10 minutes. And at that point, Paul turned around and handed me the key, and he said, I'm not coming back over here by myself anymore.
Okay.
And that's when I thought, well, maybe I should call somebody. Maybe we should see if what's going on. Again, there's nothing scary about that. Nobody is hurt. There's no, it's not
Right.
like those scary TV shows.
Right.
But I had just left, so I knew for a fact that
Right, so
it was
not-
all turned off.
Not malicious, but very difficult to explain in your head.
Well, I mean, it's like the Oklahoma Paranormal Research investigators. The first time they came, we didn't really, know what they would find, and they found all kinds of stuff. And it was like, oh, okay, well, that explains a few things.
I just think that I believe they're just trying to get our attention. I mean, like I said, they were here first. This is a 120-year-old building. So they're here, and they're just trying to get our attention the only way that they can. It's not mean. I mean, that's what when the kids get scared, I say to them, they'll say they felt something. They felt somebody pull their hair. That's a common thing. They'll be by themselves, and somebody will pull their hair. And I said, well, I mean, if I walked up and did that to you, you wouldn't be afraid.
Right.
Just because you can't see them. They're just trying to get your attention. So it's not scary.
Can I ask about how long ago was that incident with, you said his name was Paul? Mm-hmm.
That was probably in 2011, 2012.
Okay.
And things had happened always,
Right.
always. But it did escalate
Right.
around that time. It did seem
More
like
dramatic.
things started escalating, and we had enough customers. We had enough employees that would be upset. And like I said, the alarms went off constantly. And when the paranormal group came, and they would try to put little
Motion detectors and
detectors
sound and
stuff
everything.
over in this area, they would just constantly go off to the point they just turned them off.
Okay.
So, but there's active times, and there's times that there's not a lot of activity.
Have you noticed any consistency in a season being more active than another season or something like that?
I would not say that I've noticed that, no. It
It
would be
just
a better
kinda varies,
story.
yeah.
It'd be a better story,
Gotcha.
but
Yeah.
not really.
Okay. So it's not every Hallows Eve.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Just curious.
Well, I
No.
mean, we'd have weird things like the door that goes back into the kitchen right there. I've changed the lock set on it probably 3 times because the girls would go into and they couldn't get into the kitchen. And then the next person would walk up and it would open right up. So I was like, well, must be messed up. So I changed it out. Same thing would happen. Finally, I just took the doorknob off of it, and now they just open and close it with the little hole that's in there, and
There you go.
don't give them the opportunity to play with you. Then
Yeah.
And the only time that I have ever seen anything, I mean, I've felt things, I've had things happen, but the only time, because I kept saying I've never seen, and I'm here more than anybody else, I've heard radios come on, you'll hear music in another room, and you walk in there and it's not there and it's over here, and you can walk all the way around the building following the music. And it sounds like It sounds like a radio, because I always thought it was the dishwashers had left the radio on, but it's not what it is. But I'd never seen anything. One day, broad daylight, I was walking into my office, had papers in my hand, and I looked up, and it was broad daylight. And just something just walked right in front of me, just right through the wall. And I mean, I just dropped everything. And that did scare me, but just because... But there wasn't anything scary about it. Right. It didn't say anything. It didn't do anything. But that was broad daylight on a Tuesday afternoon. So Halloween would be fun, but it doesn't happen then. I don't know that they care about the calendar.
Yeah, maybe for the best.
Yeah.
So.
We were the second time that the paranormal people came. My wife and I stayed for it, and we were actually in this room, and talking to the medium, and they had a couple other volunteers, and it's all dark back here, and they've got infrared cameras going, and in the play area they had a little pin light that you twist to turn on, and they had it sitting there, and we were talking, and I was asking about our one ghost that's our most prevalent ghost, Margaret, who's kind of a turn-of-the-century woman, pioneer woman. And was asking how she died and everything, and she said, well, what she's showing me is that she ate something like oleander or something like that made her sick. And she said, for whatever reason, she keeps trying to take me down to the river, which we do have a child spirit, and we think the child spirit is tied to Margaret. And we think that she was maybe trying to take her down to the river where her daughter was sick. But we're sitting there talking about it, and all of a sudden the light goes off. And she's like, well, it could have gotten hot or whatever. They're big on debunking.
Yeah.
And she said, but Margaret, if that's you, come sit down next to me or turn the light back on or whatever. And the girl that was sitting in the play area was sitting there, and she goes, something just brushed by me. And about that time, that light popped back on. And we're just like, okay. But we sat here for about 15 minutes and had a conversation with this light. And I mean, it was like, are you the one that messes with the waitresses? Are you the one that plays with the children? The light would get dim, or it would blink, or it would go. It was crazy to sit there and watch. I was going to show you. This is that time they go around and they take pictures 3 at a time.
Okay.
And I'll show you. I'll get you. But a lot of times, it's just like a little smudge or something like that. She said, that's something. She said, that's an actual wisp of something. And that was just taken in the dark, just walking through the restaurant, and they take like 3 pictures at a time, just so that they can reference.
Yeah,
and that's what came up.
That
and that's what came up on my phone. And she was just like, wow, that's really, because we had another lady that came from another group and was taking pictures, and she got my email address and started sending me picture after picture after picture. And after a while, I realized that there was a smudge on her lens on her camera, because the ghost was in the same place on every single picture that she sent me. And I was like, oh, I think you got a smudge on your camera. And she's like, oh, I thought I was doing really good.
Yeah, that would be something.
It was, But any of that, I mean, the people that come, the public that comes, because we usually open it up, the ghost hunts to the public, they show up and they got stuff strapped to them everywhere. They're ready to do some hunting. It's neat to to have somebody that's enthusiastic about it and really curious.
Well, we've got some equipment for tonight, so we'll be breaking that out here shortly. So one of the things I'm curious about to explore for this series is what we think ghosts are. And I know you kind of mentioned it already that you know about Margaret and the child spirit and stuff. So do you think they are the spirits of people that have died?
I think it's definitely imprinted, because Noble at the turn of the century, Noble was the first bridge across the South Canadian River was at the end of this road. It was a toll bridge, and that's where they brought all of the cattle drives across and everything. And there were hotels, there were boarding rooms, there was all kinds of stuff. We had the first train depot here, so they would bring the cattle over, load it onto the train, send it back east, and bring settlers back. And Noble was the one that sent all the information back. So this was a real hub of action. A lot of stuff going on. And then Camp Norman opened up, and land was cheaper in Norman, so Norman grew and Noble didn't. But this was the hub of activity during basically, just after the land run and everything else. And I think that, a lot of it has to do with, in my opinion, the hardships and everything else. It seems that the harder that people had it, it seems the more, that's the people that we kind of,
The ones that stick around.
that are
more or
around,
less.
that are kind of imprinted. It's like they can't get away from the hardship that they had. I mean, and I don't know if they feel like they haven't finished something or something like that, but
Okay.
But you hear stuff, you see stuff, and I mean, I've seen all these EVPs and everything else that they've gotten, and I'm like, something's there.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously we don't, our spectrum of hearing and sight and everything else is very small compared to the full spectrum. So who knows what else out there? So.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I think that's kind of the fun of it, really, is that I don't know what it is. And we can only guess. But if you've experienced it, it's not a question of believing it. You know it. I mean, if you're sitting in this room and you feel what we've all felt and seen you know that it happened. You don't know what it is, but you know that it happened. That's why whenever I was telling you earlier, when people say, well, I don't believe in ghosts, it's like, okay, but I mean, they believe in you. They believe in you because they'll come right up to you and let you know they're here or whatever they are. I don't know.
Yeah, that's I'm kind of on that same page where I don't know what's going on, but I'm very interested in finding out more. So
Yeah.
I think people that have experiences are very willing to tell you about them, because when it's like somebody will be in here, and somebody say something about being, oh, I used to live in a house that was haunted, but you'd hear people walking up and down the stairs and all that, and they want to share their experience.
Yeah.
But if you haven't had an experience, then you just can be skeptical.
That's a new thing, though. I think just in our experience in this being in this building for all these years, there was a lot of time where people would never have admitted to anything. They would have been embarrassed, and now they are eager. I think people are more open and curious to the unknown, and being I think that's a good step. I mean, we all need to be a little more open-minded.
Yeah, well, and I think that people today don't demonize ghosts like they used to.
Right.
There's so much more information and everything. I mean, heck, they got a TV show about ghosts now. That it's very whimsical and a comedy and everything. But you think about 60s, 70s. I mean, it was so.
We were nervous, business-wise, whenever it first started. Whenever people started, it became because we were afraid that people, the religious aspect of it, that it would be something so negative, and so I would kind of, it's Casper, and our T-shirts would have, our little Casper ghosts on there, and say, so good they never want to leave, because you didn't want the religious part of it to play into it. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. That's the thing. It doesn't matter what you believe. It's real or it isn't. And if you've experienced, then it's real, and it's not a demon, and there's nothing bad about it that I've experienced. I don't think anyone has ever said, I mean, people have been startled by it, and I've been startled by it, but there's never been anything negative.
yeah, that was one thing that struck me because most of the things that we talk about and look into, it's a very obvious correlation with something bad. It's something that you don't want to see because it's terrifying, or it's the ghost of someone who went through some sort of tragedy,
Some type of trauma.
and so this is really interesting, and I hope that we see, like you're saying, that the other side of it, where it's not really malicious or negative, it's just something different that's there
That's
that
right.
you can experience.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah, a lot of it, I mean, a lot of the stuff that's happened over the years to employees and stuff, it's more whimsical than it is anything.
Right.
You know, just, you know, like tugging on the hair or, you know, I mean, we always blame anytime we drop something. It's, thanks, Margaret. You know, I mean, at least we
Yeah.
got somebody to blame it on and it's not our, you know.
Yeah, so maybe you got lucky and you got a spirit or something, whatever it is, that has a sense of humor, and so
I think so.
it's
I
the best
think so.
possible situation.
I think so. I also believe that spiritually, I believe that spirits, like people, are attracted to like. And
Okay.
I think that if we welcome them. You know, you're welcome here as long as you don't do anything wrong. I mean, I've had lots of different people say they want to come and we do like an exorcism and we'll do all these, you know, we'll sage and get them out of here. I don't have any, I think that's silly. And I do think that, I mean, bad people are attracted to bad places and bad people. And so I like to think that they know that they're welcome here, the good, and the unwelcome wouldn't hang around because it wouldn't be any fun for them. So
Yeah,
We're all just one big, happy, dysfunctional family.
that's exactly right.
there you go.
That's right.
I think that's the right attitude to have.
You kind of touched on the exorcism part. I was curious if you had brought anybody in for that or
No, but I mean, you know, I mean, I'm kind of a spiritual person, so I go through here every couple of weeks with my own sage, but I pray over the place. I'm just praying over it, and I'm just asking, you know, anything of can stay, anything that's not of good in God can leave, and that we want everybody that walks into this place to feel blessed and to feel that their meal is wonderful and that they have a great experience, and that whoever is welcome here is welcome here. So I just think that's I think that's why we have the good stuff.
That makes me think of another question. This used to be the kids' room. Do you guys keep any toys here still on the premises?
No, we shut
since
it. We
COVID.
shut it down during COVID because we didn't want
Okay.
kids spreading.
Have you
Any type
considered
of-
maybe just setting out toys occasionally to kind of just see what happens with them?
We probably should. We probably should. The groups always bring toys. I don't know if they've ever had any luck with that. Those flashlights, I'll have to tell you, that's crazy. They would have people come and bring their own flashlights, and they'd line these flashlights up, and they'd just be going off and on and answering questions. That was a little unsettling. I'm not going to lie. That was a little unsettling. You know, I don't know that you think of it as being quite that intelligent, you
Right.
know, and
Yeah, I guess when we found out we had a child spirit, it was the second time, and it was when my wife and I were back here with everybody, and you know they had the flashlight thing and everything, and they got an EVP, and the next time they came back, they were like, "Listen to this," and they pulled up the EVP, and I mean it was like, "Mommy," just plain as day. I mean, just plain as day, and it was just like.
Yeah.
I mean, just like the hairs, you know, you're just like, that was creepy. But, you know,
just saying
Yeah.
a word.
just
Yeah.
a kid.
That's exciting. And then the flashlight thing kind of gives you a sort of indication of like an ability to manipulate the physical world to an extent too.
Yes,
So
yes, in a very intelligent way. Like I said, I mean, we have lights come on, and you know, I've turned off lights all through this building, gone up to the front, and seen on the camera that they're back on back here. So I know that. I mean, of course, it's an old building. You know, it could be something crazy wiring, but I don't think so. But yeah, just have those lights, you know, respond to, you know.
Call you back.
I've never done anything like that. I mean, we've never sat in here and tried to do anything like that.
gotcha.
I don't know if I'm brave enough to do that.
Right. Just take it as it comes.
That's
We,
right.
Seek it out.
we, you know, we know they're
Yeah.
around, and that's fine.
Okay.
Well, if we have anything with lights, we brought an electrician tonight. So,
There you
There
go.
you go.
Okay.
so we can debunk that right away if we need to.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time that the OKPRI people came, they set up their command center up in the very front up there, and they had this place wired and everything. And it was like back in this area, they just eventually had to cut everything off that was back here because they couldn't look anywhere else because everything kept going off back here. And
But
so,
it doesn't always do that. They've been
Yeah.
here several times, and sometimes it doesn't do that. I mean, who knows? Who
So
knows?
would you say this room is the hot spot of the whole building? Or
it's pretty much a little bit of everywhere. I mean, they've had a lot of stuff back here.
The hallway in here, I would say, as far as any customers, I would have to say that would be back in here the most. They always seem to, but again, I don't know if that's perception, if they've read those stories and they're looking, because if
Right.
you're looking for it, you're going to find it. And I've never had anything happen in this room. So
With the customers, has there ever been a customer that had no idea, and maybe they said something to you about it, or?
Well, we had a lady sitting back here with her son. He was about 2 years old, and that's the one that kept looking over at the play area and smiling and everything. And I mean, they were the only people back here. And when they got up to go, the little boy goes, "Ow!" like somebody had pinched him or something like that. And she came up front. She goes, "I don't want to sit back there anymore." And I said, "What's the matter?" She said, "Something's up with that room. I don't want to sit back there anymore." And it was like, okay.
Interesting.
Not a problem.
Okay.
all right.
and they were afraid. Yeah, that was kind of, they didn't know anything about it, so.
But most people are just curious about it. I mean, they always want me to sit down with them and tell them all about them and everything.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
So I guess in order to do some due diligence here for all the skeptics, definitely not an accusation, but I think a lot of people think that places that advertise that they're haunted or famous for being haunted might have a monetary incentive for putting it out
So,
there.
like Kim always says, if we could teach them how to make cinnamon rolls, then we'd be golden. But
I've never made a penny off of them. Never
No.
made a penny off of it. No, and we have a lot of people call and want to do the tours. We have a lot of people. I mean, I've probably got 3 people in my email right now, and I say no. And they offer to pay, and I say no. And the reason that I say no is because I don't want people in here screaming like
Yeah,
on TV,
yeah.
screaming and yelling and starting all that stuff. I mean, we live here,
Yeah.
and
I've seen more stuff here than I've ever seen on any of those TV shows.
that's right.
And we haven't yelled at them once.
And I just don't like that. And I do think that that's exploitive, and we know that this is real. So we don't have any incentive to make them mad my joke is always, if I could teach them to make cinnamon rolls, then maybe we'd be in good shape. They're here anyway, so but no, there's no and we don't really, I'll occasionally say something about us having ghosts, but we don't promote it a lot because that's a double-edged sword. A lot of people look down on that, think that it's, we're in the Bible Belt, and people think that there is some demonic type thing. So I don't want to upset anybody either, that would be afraid or offended by that. So
We prefer to think we have a Patrick Swayze.
that's right.
There you go.
I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, we didn't ask for it, but we're happy we got it.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to the NōmGeo Podcast. To support the show, subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/nomadicgeographic. You can also follow us on TikTok at Nomadic Geographic. The Instagram account has been taken down, apparently because I shared the Patreon URL in a video. Speaking of Patreon, you can support us there if you're able at patreon.com/NōmGeo. Until next time, keep on something or other.